Hey, you guys, thank you for tuning in to my insulin sensitivity webinar. If I haven't had the chance to talk to you or meet you yet, I'm Megan Strupp. I am a certified holistic health coach, and I am also a fellow T1D. So today, I just kind of wanted to share with you guys what insulin sensitivity is and a few different ways that you can work on improving your own. But before diving into that, I wanted to start with a breathing exercise, kind of a way to center ourselves and focus for the next 20 minutes. So I'm going to ask everyone to go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale out through your mouth. Feel completely supported by the earth beneath you. Maybe it's a chair, the bed, or a couch. Go ahead and take another deep breath in through your nose and notice the coolness of the air as you breathe in. And as you exhale, notice the warmth. And let's do another breath in. Unclench your jaw and remove your tongue from the roof of your mouth. And exhale all the tension and stress from your day. Let's do another deep breath in and go ahead and set an intention for the webinar today. Maybe you're looking for clarity or connection. Whatever it is, go ahead and get clear on your intention. Take a deep breath in, the deepest breath you've taken all day, and let it all go. And go ahead and open your eyes, and let's get started. I wanted to start with talking about what insulin sensitivity even is. So insulin sensitivity basically refers to how well your body is able to use insulin, or how well our cells respond to insulin. And this kind of refers to how easily they're able to let sugar that is in our blood into them. So if our cells only need a small amount of insulin to allow sugar in, that is considered sensitive to insulin. On the flip side of that, if our body is not able to use insulin efficiently, this is considered more of an insulin resistance. Or if we need an excess amount of insulin to get our cells to respond and let that sugar in, this is considered insulin resistance. So why does this really matter? Why do we care if we have to take a few more units of insulin at dinner, right? So this actually matters because as our cells become more resistant to insulin, our blood sugars become more and more difficult to manage. And we all know the different complications and other diseases that tend to follow unmanaged blood sugars, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse. But just being on the roller coaster of unmanaged sugars is exhausting, and it makes us feel crappy, and it's kind of diabetes' way of getting in the way of our lives, which we don't want. We all have jobs that we have to do and people that we want to spend time with and things that we want to do, and when diabetes gets in the way of those things, it really sucks. So our goal here is to find a way to have stable, manageable sugars so that we're able to live our lives and not have diabetes get in the way. So this is our fictitious scale for today. This is our pretend insulin sensitivity scale. So a level 10 is going to be someone who is highly sensitive to insulin. So they need a small amount of insulin to cover a large amount of carbs or to cover a large amount of sugar in their blood. Someone on the lower end of the scale, so like a 1, is going to have low insulin sensitivity. So that means that they need a lot of insulin to cover that same amount of carbs. So basically, they're more insulin resistant. So in our first example today, we have Katie. Katie is a type 1 diabetic, and she has an insulin sensitivity of 3. So she's on the lower sensitivity range. Her blood sugar is starting out at 100, and she plans to eat a 15-gram carb apple without giving any insulin. So in an hour after eating the apple, she goes to check her blood sugar and she is at 255. Our next example is Linda. Linda is another type 1 diabetic. She has an insulin sensitivity of 9, so she is much more sensitive to insulin than Katie was. Linda's starting blood sugar is 100 also, and she's going to eat that same 15-gram carb apple and not give any insulin. And then in an hour, she checks her blood sugar and she's at 140. So of the two, Katie, Linda, 255, 140, who do you want to be? I'm assuming all of us are saying Linda, right? 140 sounds so much better than 255. So Linda was able to achieve this 140 blood sugar because she was much more sensitive to insulin. So Linda was able to achieve this number because her cells were able to take in the sugar from her blood from the apple much more easily, and therefore kept her blood sugar more stable. Also probably keeping her energy pretty high, and she was probably able to continue on with her day without diabetes really getting in the way. Katie, on the flip side of that, checked her blood sugar 255. She was probably giving herself a correction dose. Maybe she was checking for ketones. She was probably feeling pretty crummy at this point. And maybe she had plans later that night that she ended up canceling because she was just so exhausted from a day of dealing with unruling blood sugars. And that is exactly what we don't want, right? Because we don't want diabetes to make us feel crummy or get in the way of us living our lives. So that's why it's so important to increase our insulin sensitivity and see those stable sugars. This also can have effects on our A1C. So as we increase our insulin sensitivity, our blood sugars are easier to manage. And when our blood sugars are easier to manage, they're going to be more stable. So we're going to have nice rolling hills on our Dexcom instead of like peaks and valleys and just a mess, right? And that's going to lead to a lower A1C. So now that I have everyone convinced that we all want to increase our insulin sensitivity, how do we actually do that? My first tip is to exercise. Exercise is going to be the most effective way to increase your insulin sensitivity. Just 30 minutes of movement can increase your insulin sensitivity for up to 48 hours after that. And this can really be through resistance training or aerobic training. So whatever works best for you, whatever is going to get you out there and moving, do that. Maybe it's running or walking or lifting weights or swimming, biking, whatever it is that you like to do that exercise to see an increase in your insulin sensitivity. So how does this even work? Exercise is going to lead to more stable sugars because when we exercise, we're obviously using our muscles, and our muscles use up their glucose stores to have energy and do whatever we're asking them to do. After we're done working out, our muscles want to refill those glucose stores. So they're going to take up the sugar in our blood. And as a result, we're going to see more stable sugars. If we don't exercise and our muscles don't need to take up any of that sugar, the sugar in our blood has less places to go. So it tends to just stay there, and we see those higher blood sugar readings. I can actually personally attest to this, that exercise works. When I was in college, I literally never worked out. I didn't feel the need, didn't have time, whatever my excuse was, I just didn't do it. And I was taking probably 30 units of long-acting insulin a day, which I'm not saying that's a lot, but just as a reference point, that's what I was taking. Today, I work out 3 to 4 times a week minimum, and I'm down to anywhere from 17 to 20 units of long-acting insulin a day, which is 10 units less than I used to be taking. And not only is it great to have less insulin, like having to take less insulin all the time, and I'm seeing better blood sugars, but also it's great to not have to go to the pharmacy and buy insulin as often. Like, I'm literally saving money. It does pay off. A few other tips. Reduce inflammation. So chronic inflammation in your body is detrimental. It can lead to all kinds of diseases, but it also causes our body to be more insulin resistant. One food in particular that causes inflammation is sugar. So try to watch your sugar consumption, at least pay attention to it, and maybe try to make choices that are a little bit less in sugar. But if you're not into restricting yourself and limiting yourself, because who is, just try to add foods in that are anti-inflammatory. So fruits and veggies are a great example of this. You can eat them and they actually help your body. They help reduce inflammation. So instead of trying to like cut out sugar, try to just add in fruits and veggies. Okay, my next tip is to manage your stress levels. So when we're stressed, it causes all kinds of harm to our body. And stress also causes the release of some certain hormones, including cortisol, that cause insulin resistance. And this is what we don't want. So we need to find ways to manage our stress. This is going to look different for everyone. Different things work for different people. So try out different methods and find what works for you. A few suggestions I have is maybe exercise, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's meditating. You could try journaling, getting a massage, maybe just hanging out with friends relaxes you, or just resting, just taking some time to go to bed early and let your body rest. On that note, my next tip is sleep. Get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. So many important healing processes take place when we are asleep. And aside from that, if we're not getting enough sleep, our body is in that state of stress. And that state of stress is what causes the cortisol and the insulin resistance that we're working against. So get your sleep. Lastly, take control, put the effort in. If you notice your sugars are crazy and you have no idea what is going on with them, take the time to do a couple days of blood sugar journaling and figure out where you're off and how you can make adjustments. My one tip for if you do the blood sugar journaling is strictly look at it as information. Don't let yourself attach any emotions to the blood sugars you see. So there are no good and bad. There's maybe just in range and out of range. The blood sugars that are in range, you just take those as what works for you and use the whatever you were doing to get the blood sugars in range and use that moving forward. For the blood sugars that are out of range, you notice they're out of range, you look what you did, and you learn how and decide how to make an adjustment. Don't beat yourself up. Don't feel guilty. Don't create bad emotions. Simply look at your sugars as information and for how you can move forward and help your body see those more stable sugars. That is all I have for you guys. Here is my contact info. If you have any questions, please reach out. I will be sending out a recording, so check your emails and you can always rewatch.